So we've talked about zero product property, which, if you remember, tells us that if a product is zero, then one of its factors must equal zero. All right, and remember that the factors are the things that multiply together to get the product. And when you can apply a zero product rule or zero product property, you can just set each factor equal to zero and then solve for x. Right? So what happens when your product is not zero? Well, if you have something like this where it's x squared minus x minus 6 equals, let's say, -4, you can just use algebra to add 4 to both sides. Basic algebra rules: what you do to one side, you can do to the, or you must do to the other. And you get it set equal to 0. You factor, so multiplies to be -2 adds to equal -1 is going to be -2 and +1 equals 0. You've got your product and you've got your factors. Set your factors each equal to 0. Solve for x, and you solved it. But there is a special case where if you have a perfect square trinomial, so let's say x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 0, or equals something besides 0, let's say equals 16. You could subtract 16 from both sides and get x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. You can factor that and solve it. Or, just erase it. Here's what else you can do. If you learn to recognize that this is a perfect square trinomial, meaning that in the middle you have the square root of your first term times the square root of your second term times 2, which you do. You have 2 times 1 times x in the center. It's a perfect square trinomial. So you can factor it. So it's going to be x plus 1 squared equals 16. Now what you can do, we haven't talked about this a whole lot, but when you have something that is squared, you can take the square root of both sides. So take square root, take the square root, and you get x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 16. So the plus or minus, I'm going to go off on a little side note here. If you think about exponents and how they work, 2 squared equals 4. -2 squared also equals +4. There's no way to square a number and come out with a positive product, or a negative product. It's not possible. Therefore, it's also not possible to take the square root of a negative number. because there's no combination of two numbers that result multiplied together that results with the same sign that results in a negative number. So again, if you square 3, cube is a different story. We want to talk about square. You get positive 9. Negative 3, that's a squared. You get positive 9. All right. So because if you're saying the square root of something, it could be that you have two possible solutions. Negative, in this case, negative 4 is a solution, and positive 4 is a solution, because negative 4 squared equals 16, and positive 4 squared equals 16. So if you leave that plus or minus, you can then say, okay, x plus 1 equals positive 4, x plus 1 equals negative 4. Solve for x, subtract 1 from both sides, x equals 3, x equals negative 5. And there are your two solutions. Okay, so that is how that works. We're going to go deeper into why this is important and why this is another method we can use to solve quadratic equations. Okay?